His wife texted, "Going on a solo trip with my first love, don't be jealous." What he did next crushed her. Going on a solo trip with my first love. Don't be jealous. Those were the last words Jennifer Morgan texted her husband, a man who had given her a home, a future, and a life people dream about, before vanishing, confident he would wait, worry, and fall apart while she chased old flames. She had no idea that the man she walked out on was already setting in motion one of the coldest, quietest revenge exits in infidelity history. What happened next will make you question everything you think you understand about loyalty, boundaries, and betrayal. Viewers, what would you do if your spouse sent you this message? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The hum of the office was low and steady, the kind of quiet that came when the rest of the world had gone home. Brandon Morgan leaned back in his chair, eyes flicking between two monitors. Lines of code filled one screen, contract clauses filled the other. His pen tapped absently against the desk as he scanned a cybersecurity audit report for the Defense Department, the biggest deal Morgan Dynamics had ever landed. He was halfway through a clause about data retention when his phone buzzed beside the keyboard. A soft vibration, one he almost ignored. Jennifer usually texted around this hour, asking what he wanted for dinner, teasing him to come home early. Last night it had been pot roast. The night before, grilled chicken with mashed potatoes. She loved making his favorites. Without looking up, he reached for the phone and unlocked it with his thumb. Then the world stopped moving. Jennifer. Going on a solo trip with my first love. Don't be jealous. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Brandon stared at the words until they blurred. For a full 10 seconds, his brain refused to process what he was seeing. Then his chest tightened, breath catching halfway. Solo trip. First love. 2 weeks. No emoji could soften that. No explanation followed. He called immediately. 2 rings, then voicemail, her voice light and familiar. "Hey, it's Jennifer, leave me a message." "Jen, what the hell is going on? Call me, now." He hung up and stared at the phone, waiting for the callback that didn't come. He texted, "We need to talk, this isn't funny. Call me right now." No reply. No typing bubble. He called again. This time it didn't even ring. Straight to voicemail. She'd blocked him. Brandon's throat went dry. The polished confidence that came so easily in boardrooms slipped away like air through cracked glass. He pushed back from the desk so suddenly that the chair rolled against the cabinet. Through the glass wall of his office, Austin's skyline shimmered in the evening haze. He grabbed his suit jacket, ignored the curious glance from his assistant locking up, and took the elevator down. His reflection in the stainless steel doors looked foreign, same tailored suit, same calm exterior, but the eyes behind it were burning. The garage felt cavernous and cold. He climbed into his Tesla, the seatbelt click echoing too loud in the silence. The drive home was a blur of red lights and disbelief. His Tesla hummed quietly through Austin's evening traffic, each mile feeding a sinking certainty. It couldn't be real. Jennifer loved him. She had to. He'd given her everything, safety, luxury, freedom. He'd built his life around her. He turned onto their street, a tree-lined cul-de-sac in one of the city's wealthiest neighborhoods. Every lawn was perfectly trimmed, every mailbox gleaming. Normal, peaceful. Her Lexus was in the driveway, gleaming under the amber glow. He parked beside it, heart pounding. Maybe she was inside. Maybe it was some twisted joke. He opened the door. "Jennifer?" No answer. He walked through the living room. The candle she'd lit that morning still burned faintly on the console table. The faint scent of vanilla hung in the air, but the house felt hollow. Too still, too clean. Upstairs, the bedroom door stood half open. Her side of the closet gaped empty. The big ivory suitcase from their honeymoon was gone, half the hangers bare. On the dresser, where her jewelry box usually sat, there was only a faint square of dust. She'd taken her life piece by piece while he'd been in meetings building their future. He sat on the edge of their bed, staring at the indentation her body made in the mattress. They'd made love in this bed last night, She'd kissed him goodbye this morning, told him she loved him, reminded him to take his vitamins, and now she was gone. With another man. He thought back to the past few months, searching for signs he'd missed. She'd been on her phone more than usual, but he'd assumed she was texting her sister or browsing social media. She'd seemed distant sometimes, but when he asked if everything was okay, she always smiled and said she was fine. And then, hours later, she'd sent that message. The betrayal hit slow and deep, a physical ache spreading through his chest, because this was his wife. The woman who'd stood in front of their families and promised to love him, honor him, stay faithful to him. And she'd thrown it away with a text message. No warning. No chance to fight for their marriage. Just a casual announcement, like she was telling him she'd be late coming home from the grocery store. Don't be jealous. The audacity of those 3 words burned in his chest. He'd given her everything, a home that overlooked the lake, a car she adored, a limitless card. He'd told her she didn't need to work, that she'd earned rest after years of struggle. Somewhere between comfort and freedom, she'd found someone else. By 9 p.m., the house was dark except for the blue light from his phone. He sat in the living room, elbows on his knees, staring at nothing. The framed photo from their wedding sat on the mantel. He turned it face down. His thumb hovered over his contacts. Then he scrolled until he found Cal Peterson. They'd met in college. Cal studied criminology while Brandon buried himself in software engineering. Now Cal was a private investigator in Houston, the kind who didn't waste words or time. Brandon pressed call. 2 rings. Peterson Investigations. Cal, it's Brandon Morgan. A pause. Brandon, been years. What's wrong? I need your help, Brandon said quietly. My wife's gone. She texted me she's on a trip with her first love. I need to know where, with who, everything. Cal's tone sharpened. Send me her full name, number, socials. I'll start tonight. Money's not a problem. I know, you'll hear from me soon. When the call ended, Brandon walked to the balcony. The city stretched below, its lights shimmering against the black water of Lake Travis. Somewhere in the night, his wife was laughing with another man. He slipped his phone into his pocket, the wind tugging at his sleeves. The ache inside him hardened into something else. Cold, deliberate, patient. Brandon didn't remember when he finally drifted into sleep, only that he woke to a pale streak of dawn cutting across the bedroom ceiling. His phone lay beside him on the mattress, still silent except for the faint buzz of overnight emails. He showered, dressed, and left the house like a man moving underwater. The morning air felt heavier than usual, the sky too bright. His movements were automatic. Grab keys, lock door, drive. Yet his mind stayed locked in the moment her number stopped ringing the night before. He didn't tell anyone. Not his assistant, not his partners, not even his COO, who noticed something was off when Brandon skimmed over a security briefing without his usual sharp questions. Everything okay? She asked. Fine, Brandon said. Too quickly, too flatly. He spent the rest of the day buried in meetings, analysis reports, and investor calls. He forced himself to speak, to nod, to concentrate. But every few minutes his eyes drifted back to his phone. No calls, no texts. Jennifer had vanished into thin air. By noon, he couldn't stop replaying the voicemail he'd left the night before. Jen, what the hell is going on? Call me. Now. He no longer expected an answer. The day crawled. People talked around him. He barely heard them. He signed documents he didn't remember reading. He approved budgets that normally took him an hour to dissect. He checked his phone every 10 minutes without meaning to. Still nothing. By 6, most of the office had gone home. Brandon stayed buried in work until it was dark outside, trying to outrun the tightening in his chest. At 9, he finally closed his laptop, the glow of the screens making his eyes burn. He drove home slowly this time, not speeding like the night before. The streets were quiet, the kind of Tuesday night quiet that made everything feel sharper, heavier. Her Lexus still sat in the driveway, mocking reality. Inside the house, The silence felt even thicker. His footsteps echoed through the rooms. He loosened his tie, walked to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water, but didn't drink it. His phone buzzed. He froze. It was 10:58 p.m. Cal Peterson. A simple text. "I've got something for you. Check your email." Brandon's pulse kicked hard against his ribs. He walked to his study, and sat down slowly, like the chair might give way beneath him. He opened the email. The attachments took a second to load. The world tilted. The first photo hit him like a punch. Jennifer on a Miami beach, sun-kissed and carefree, wrapped in the arms of a man Brandon had never seen before. A tattooed forearm around her waist, lips brushing her cheek. Her smile, wide, reckless, intimate. He scrolled. Another photo. Another. Jennifer in a hotel pool, sitting on the man's laps. Jennifer sharing a drink in a rooftop bar, leaning into him. Jennifer kissing him in the hallway of a penthouse suite. Then came the videos. Brandon clicked the first one. It was grainy, taken from a distance, but unmistakable. Jennifer and the man dancing at a sunset party, her hand sliding into his back pocket. She threw her head back, laughing in a way Brandon hadn't seen in months. The second video was taken through a balcony door. Jennifer straddled the man on a lounge chair, kissing him like she'd never kissed Brandon in her life. He stopped the video halfway. His stomach twisted violently. Brandon closed the laptop. The silence of the room felt like a physical pressure. For a long moment, he didn't move. He just stared at the floor, his jaw tightening slowly, deliberately. A man could crumble under this, collapse, scream, drink himself numb. But Brandon was not built to break. He was built to respond, strategically, quietly, completely. He reached for his phone and dialed. "Peterson," Cal answered again. "I saw everything," Brandon said, his voice low, emotionless. "Who is he?" "Derek Owens," Cal replied. 31, musician, lives in Miami. He set the phone down. The house seemed to tilt around him. For a long moment, he didn't move. The air in the study felt too warm, too close. He stood abruptly and walked outside to the balcony, the cold night wind slapping against his face. While he'd been approving budgets, reading contracts, leading meetings, she'd been wrapped up in another man's arms, on beaches and balconies, laughing like she'd never laughed with him. He looked out over the dark stretch of Lake Travis, the water still as glass. His hands curled into fists. The night felt endless, the kind that stretched time, stretched pain, stretched clarity, until there was nothing left but decision. Inside the house, the clock in the hallway clicked softly toward midnight. He walked into the study, sat at his desk, and unlocked the private drawer on the right, the one he hadn't opened since the wedding. Inside lay a leather folder embossed with their initials, BMJA, prenuptial agreement. He lifted it carefully, like it was something fragile, though there was nothing delicate about the words inside. On the fourth page, highlighted in pale gold ink the attorney insisted they use, was the clause Jennifer had laughed about at the time. Infidelity shall result in the forfeiture of all marital rights, claims, and shared assets. She'd called it overkill. Brandon had called it protection. Now it was prophecy. He placed the prenup beside the evident he printed from his laptop. He organized everything neatly, not because he cared about presentation, but because he needed control, order, precision, anything that wasn't emotional chaos. When the folder was complete, he slipped everything into a black briefcase and exhaled and went to bed. Brandon woke to sunlight pressing against his eyelids, the kind that made everything feel harsher, too real, too bright. The house was silent, still holding the weight of last night like a bruise in the walls. For a moment he lay there staring at the ceiling, the memory of the videos flickering behind his eyes. The resort pool, her in that teal bikini, laughing in another man's arms, vanishing behind a hotel door that wasn't his. Brandon let out a slow breath and sat up. His body felt heavy, but his mind was sharp, sharper than it had been in years. The storm had passed. The clarity remained. He showered, shaved, and dressed the same way he always did. Charcoal suit, crisp shirt, watch he'd bought after his first major contract. The routine centered him. It reminded him he was still the man who built an empire. He would dismantle what she took for granted with the same precision. He took the briefcase and stepped out of the house without looking back. The drive to Hayesbrook's law group was quiet. He didn't turn on the radio, didn't check his phone for updates, didn't wonder what Jennifer was doing at that exact moment. The day was for action, not reflection. He arrived just after 9. The receptionist barely had time to adjust her glasses before Brandon stepped out of the elevator. "I need to see Attorney Hayes," Brandon said. She nodded quickly. "Of course, Mr. Morgan, he's just finishing a call. You can—" "I'll wait in his office." His tone wasn't rude, just immovable. Hayes stood when Brandon entered, his expression shifting from polite surprise to grave alertness the moment Brandon set the briefcase on the desk. "What happened?" Hayes asked quietly. Brandon didn't answer. He opened the briefcase instead. One by one, he laid the items on the polished wood surface. The prenup, the PI evidence. Hayes's jaw tightened. "Enough said." Brandon sat. His voice was low, calm, stripped of all softness. "I want the divorce filed today. Enforce the prenup." Hayes flipped through the pages, eyes narrowing. "With this evidence, it's airtight. She won't get a cent." "Good." When the documents were ready, Brandon signed without hesitation. Not a tremor in his hand. Not a single second thought. He closed the briefcase, stood, and left. He walked 3 blocks to First Lone Star Bank, the institution that handled both his personal and corporate accounts. The bank manager, Mr. Dalton, hurried to greet him. "Mr. Morgan, good morning. How can I assist you?" Brandon slid a single sheet of paper across the desk, account access records and the card numbers tied to Jennifer. "I need these disabled," Brandon said. "Completely. Today." Dalton read the sheet, nodding slowly. "Of course. We can freeze her black card and remove her as an authorized user." "Not freeze," Brandon interrupted, his voice even. "Terminate." Dalton blinked. "Understood. And revoke online access. Transfer all account notifications back to me alone." "Yes, sir." Brandon leaned back slightly, eyes steady. "I want written confirmation of changes before I leave this building." Dalton nodded again, this time more cautiously. "We'll process it immediately." 10 minutes later, Jennifer's black card, the one Brandon gifted her on their first anniversary, was deactivated. The account she used for groceries, shopping, brunches, and self-care days was stripped of her name. Her login credentials returned an error. By the time Dalton printed the final confirmation sheet, Jennifer Morgan had no access to a single dollar Brandon owned. "Is there anything else, Mr. Morgan?" Dalton asked. Brandon stared at the paper, then folded it with slow, deliberate precision. "No," he said. "This will do." He walked out of the bank to a sky the color of steel, the wind cutting across his cheek like a warning. The next morning broke quietly, a pale stretch of light spilling across the bedroom floorboards. Brandon sat on the edge of the bed, lacing his shoes, the house around him unusually still, emptier than before, as if it had already begun forgetting Jennifer's presence. He moved through his morning routine without hesitation. Coffee, shower, fresh suit, every movement precise, unhurried, unshaken. Clarity had become a kind of armor. By 8, he stood at the kitchen counter with a small notepad. When the doorbell rang, he opened the front door. A middle-aged man was carrying a case of tools. "You're Mr. Morgan?" Brandon nodded once. He showed him around. Within an hour, every lock in the house had been removed and replaced. Front door, back door, garage access, balcony sliders, even the side gate Jennifer liked to leave open for fresh air. Brandon stood by, silent, arms folded, watching each old lock drop into a metal bucket with a hollow clang. When the locksmith finished, he handed Brandon a small envelope with the new keys inside. Brandon accepted it with a curt nod. By the time he left the house, no longer recognized Jennifer Morgan. He dialed the number of the auto broker who managed his company's vehicle fleet. "I need a pickup," Brandon said. "Lexus LX, my residence." "That model? It'll sell quickly," the broker replied. "Give me an hour." Brandon ended the call and stood in the driveway staring at the silver Lexus Jennifer adored, remembering the day he surprised her with it. She'd cried in his arms, told him no one had ever cared for her like he did. He believed her then. He didn't dwell on it now. The broker's truck arrived precisely on schedule. Papers were signed on the hood of the car. Keys exchanged. The Lexus was winched onto the flatbed and driven away, shrinking down the road until it disappeared behind the bend. Brandon didn't watch it go. He was already turning toward the garage. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cardboard and clean concrete. 3 boxes remained. Everything Jennifer left behind because she never thought she'd lose access to anything. Brandon lifted each one carefully, placing them into the trunk of his car. Her clothing, her shoes, her forgotten toiletries, her jewelry case. And then the last items, set aside on the workbench. The printed evidence, the divorce papers. He slid them into a flat envelope and placed it gently atop her belongings. He closed the trunk. The click echoed through the garage like punctuation. By noon, he was on the road, heading north toward Dallas, sunlight flickering across the windshield as interstate miles unfolded beneath him. He didn't play music, didn't check messages, didn't think about what he would say. Some truths don't require speeches. 3 hours later, he turned onto the quiet street where Jennifer's parents lived, an older, brick-lined neighborhood shaded by towering pecan trees. Their house sat at the end of the block, white shutters, blue door, the kind of home built for family photographs Jennifer always begged to avoid. Brandon parked at the curb and stepped out, the weight of the envelope tucked beneath his arm. He walked up the pathway, his shoes crunching softly against the small gravel stones lining the walkway. He knocked. Jennifer's mother opened the door, surprise flickering across her features. "Brandon, sweetheart, what a surprise. Is everything all right?" Brandon didn't flinch. "Is Dad home?" Her brow furrowed, but she stepped aside. Inside, her father stood from his recliner, confusion creasing his forehead. "Brandon, you look pale, son. What happened?" Brandon set the envelope on the coffee table. Then he went back outside and opened the trunk. Box by box, he carried Jennifer's belongings into the living room, placing each one neatly beside the envelope. Her parents watched in stunned silence. When the last box was on the floor, Brandon stood tall, hands clasped behind his back, his voice even and stripped of all emotion. "Jennifer has been gone for 72 hours, he said. "She's in Miami. Here is the address, you can check on her." Her mother's hand flew to her mouth. Her father stared at the boxes, breathing heavily. "I'm returning everything that belongs to her," Brandon continued, his tone steady, almost gentle. "The divorce papers are inside. So is the reason why." Jennifer's mother whispered, "Brandon, what happened?" He met her eyes, calm, composed, unbreakable. "You'll understand when you open it," he said. "It's better this way." He didn't wait for questions, didn't wait for tears, didn't wait for anger. He simply turned, walked out of the house, and closed the door behind him with the quiet precision of a man making peace with the truth. The moment he stepped into the afternoon sun, he inhaled deeply. The chapter was done, and Jennifer would learn that the consequences she never imagined were already in motion. The sound of Brandon's car faded down the street, leaving the house unnervingly silent. Jennifer's parents stood frozen in the living room, surrounded by boxes of her belongings. The envelope on the coffee table felt like it was radiating heat. Her mother stared at it. "Open it," she whispered. Her father's hand trembled slightly as he broke the seal. The moment he slid out the contents, the air in the room shifted. The first photo, Jennifer wrapped in a robe, her lips pressed to a stranger's mouth on a balcony at a beachfront resort. Her mother gasped and covered her mouth. The second photo, Jennifer straddling the same man, their bodies tangled by a pool, the divorce papers, the PI documentation. Her father's jaw clenched so tightly a vein pulsed near his temple. "Get my laptop," he said, voice low and shaking. Her mother hurried to the dining table, returning with it. He opened it, fingers flying with a speed fueled by fury. Within minutes, 2 flights were booked, first available departures to Miami. Her mother whispered, "Oh God, what has she done?" Left the house in silence, and take a taxi to the airport in silence. They did not speak on the plane. Both stared straight ahead like passengers being carried toward a wreck they already knew was fatal. When they landed in Miami, the humidity wrapped around them like a damp warning. They took a taxi directly to the resort from the photos. White stone, blue glass, palm trees swaying gently. Jennifer's mother gripped her purse, knuckles pale. Room 514. They found it without hesitation. Her father didn't knock. He pushed the door open. And there she was. Jennifer and Derek were kissing passionately, bodies pressed together against the side of the bed, his hands sliding up her waist as she clutched at the back of his neck. They were lost in it, so lost they didn't hear the door open. Her mother let out a broken scream. "Jennifer!" Jennifer jerked back so violently she hit the dresser. Derek stumbled, shocked, grabbing for a towel that wasn't there. Jennifer's robe was half open, her hair damp, her lips swollen from the kiss. "Mom? Dad?" Jennifer's voice cracked, her face draining of blood. Her father stepped inside, eyes blazing with disappointment so sharp she swayed backward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His tone alone was a blade. "Pack your things," he said. "You're leaving, now." Jennifer's breath hitched. "Please, let me explain." "There is nothing to explain," her mother cried, tears streaking down her face. "Jennifer, we saw everything. Brandon showed us where you are, what you're doing." Jennifer's mouth trembled. "Mom, please, just let me talk to Brandon." Her father's voice snapped like cold steel. "Brandon?" He took one step forward. "Brandon is done with you." Jennifer froze, her knees threatening to buckle. Her father pointed to the bedroom. "You have 10 minutes. Pack. And don't make me repeat myself." Jennifer backed away, robe trembling around her, tears streaming as she staggered toward her suitcase. Derek stood helplessly to the side, rubbing the back of his neck, suddenly realizing he wasn't part of this story anymore, not even to her. 10 minutes later, she came out with a half-zipped suitcase and red, swollen eyes. They walked out without a word. In the taxi leaving the resort, the city lights reflecting across her tear-stained face, Jennifer whispered into her palms, "Oh God, what did I do? Brandon? Brandon, please." No one answered her. The only sound was the engine carrying her closer to a home where nothing familiar waited. Her parents didn't touch her, didn't comfort her, didn't trust themselves to speak without shattering. At the airport, her mother walked 3 steps ahead, her father carrying the suitcase with stiff, angry motions. Jennifer followed behind them like a shadow, small, silent, and trembling. They didn't look at her at the check-in counter. They didn't sit beside her on the plane. Her father took the aisle. Her mother took the window. Jennifer was placed between them like a wound they didn't want to touch. The plane took off, the ocean beneath them a cold stretch of blue. Jennifer stared at her shaking hands the entire flight, replaying the moment the door opened, the moment her parents saw her, the moment everything collapsed. Brandon will forgive me. He loves me. He just needs to hear me. She repeated the lies until she could breathe again. When the plane landed in Austin, the Texas heat hit them instantly. Dry, harsh, unwelcoming. The taxi from the Austin airport dropped them at Jennifer's parents' house just after sunset. The sky was dimming to a deep violet, the porch light flickering on as if sensing the heaviness approaching. Jennifer stepped out slowly, her suitcase wheels scraping the concrete. She expected her parents to say something, anything. But they walked ahead in silence, weary, devastated, unwilling to speak until they were behind the closed door of their own home. The moment her father unlocked the door, Jennifer froze. Her luggage was there, her boxes, everything she owned, stacked neatly in the middle of the living room, and on top, like the final nail hammered into a coffin, lay the envelope Brandon had left. The divorce papers sat right where he placed them. The prenup clause highlighted, the photos, the PI evidence. Jennifer's knees nearly buckled. No, 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 no. Her mother stood beside the doorway, one hand over her mouth, the other pressed against her chest, as if the sight physically hurt. Her father didn't move, didn't speak. Jennifer rushed forward, tossing aside the papers with trembling hands as if the truth might disappear if she scattered it fast enough. No, he can't be serious. He can't do this. Her voice broke into panicked sobs. No, no, Brandon wouldn't. He wouldn't. Her father's voice was low, exhausted. Jennifer, he already did. That's not possible, she cried, pacing in frantic circles, grabbing handfuls of her clothes from the boxes, dropping them again. He loves me. He wouldn't throw me out. He wouldn't. Her mother whispered, Sweetheart, he saw everything. Jennifer's breath came in sharp, jagged gasps. She picked up the divorce papers again, her eyes blurring through tears. Forfeit all marital rights, she read aloud, voice cracking. No, this can't be real. She threw the papers onto the couch and stumbled back, pressing her hands to her head. Her father stepped forward. You need to calm down. I can't calm down, she screamed, panic bursting out of her like flame. My life is gone. Everything. Her chest heaved violently. She looked around the living room, her life reduced to 3 boxes and a suitcase. Where is he? She whispered suddenly, her voice dropping to a trembling whisper. Where is Brandon? Her mother hesitated. Jennifer, where is he? Her father closed his eyes. Home. Jennifer grabbed her purse and bolted for the door. Her mother cried out, Jennifer, wait. But she was already outside, the screen door slamming behind her. Her parents followed her onto the porch, but stopped at the steps, helpless as she flagged down a passing rideshare car with frantic gestures. Jennifer, think about what you're doing, her mother called. But Jennifer didn't hear anything above the pounding in her skull. She yanked open the back door of the car, threw herself inside, and shouted, Take me to this address, now! The driver nodded silently and pulled away from the curb. Jennifer stared out the window, shaking, whispering the same words over and over like a desperate prayer. He still loves me. He still loves me. He'll forgive me. He has to. He has to. He has to. The city lights streaked past her, blurred by tears. 10 minutes later, the car turned onto Brandon Street. Jennifer saw the house, still, quiet, unmoving. Her heart slammed painfully against her ribs. She threw the car door open before it even stopped fully and ran toward the porch, stumbling over the uneven concrete in her haste. She lifted her key with shaking hands, but it didn't fit. She tried again. Not even close. Her breath hitched. He had changed the locks. She started knocking, soft at first, then harder. Brandon. Her voice cracked. Brandon, please. Please open the door. Please. The night stayed still. She knocked again, harder, her tears falling onto the doormat. Brandon, open the door.
I'm begging you. I'm so sorry. Just let me talk to you. Please. Please. Inside, she heard faint movement. Her heart leaped. Then, footsteps. Slow. Steady. Coming toward her. Jennifer stepped back, brushing her hair from her wet cheeks, desperately trying to compose herself. The locks clicked. The door opened, and Brandon stepped outside, behind him. He didn't lean on the frame. He didn't fold his arms. He didn't show anger or exhaustion. He simply stood there, tall, steady, composed. A man fully done. Jennifer froze at the bottom of the porch steps, her breath catching in her chest. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks, her hair clinging to her face, hands trembling uncontrollably. "Brandon," she whispered, voice quivering. "Please, I'm begging you. Please talk to me." He looked at her without flinching. Jennifer took a shaky step forward. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but I love you. I swear I do. Please, just give me one chance to explain." Brandon's voice was quiet, controlled, final. "There's nothing to explain." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. He continued. "You made your choice. You packed your bags. You bought your ticket. You went to him. You chose that life. And now you have to live with it." Jennifer shook her head violently, tears streaming. No, I was stupid. I wasn't thinking. Brandon, please. I came back because I want you, because I love you." "No," he said, the single word cutting clean through the night. "You came back because the world you ran to collapsed." She gasped as if struck. He stepped down one stair, closing the gap between them by inches. Not enough to touch her, just enough so she could see the truth in his eyes. "I don't hate you," he said softly. "But I don't want you." Jennifer's knees buckled. She clung to the railing, choking on a sob. "Please, please don't do this to me. Please don't end us. I can't lose you. Brandon, I can't." "You already did," he said. Her sobs grew harsher, collapsing into quiet, broken hiccups. He looked at her and said, "Goodbye, Jennifer." He turned and walked inside. She lurched forward. "Brandon, no, please." But the door had already closed. Jennifer collapsed onto the porch, a silent, shaking mess of regret and grief. She pressed her forehead against the cold wood, sobbing into the stillness. Some mistakes don't get second chances, some doors close forever, and some good men walk away without raising their voices, because they've already said everything with their actions. Viewers, if you were Brandon, will you give her a second chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting and true-to-life stories.